Question number 40 on the reading portion of College Board's Test 4. Which choice best states the relationship between the two passages? So this is a question that is asking us to summarize, in essence, what each passage was about. Passage 1 was from Edmund Burke, and Edmund Burke says, don't change government just because you want it. The relationship between a citizen and his government is very precious, and that relationship is a relationship that is based on the living, the dead, and the unborn. So it's precious and sacred. Thomas Paine, passage 2, what does he say? The government is only exists for the present. It only exists for the living. The dead play no role in it, and the yet to be born play no role in it. So they're opposing in their beliefs. Recall that passage 2 was written after passage 1. Passage 2 was written in 1791. Passage 1 was written in 1790. Which choice best states the relationship between two passages? A, passage 2 challenges the primary argument of passage 1. Maybe. Because what's the primary argument of passage 1? Society is a relationship between the dead, the living, and the unborn. Passage 2 directly contradicts that. Passage 2 directly counters that, it argues against that, and says it's only for the living. So maybe passage 2 challenges the primary argument. What about B? Which choice best states the relation between the two passages? Passage 2 advocates an alternative approach to a problem discussed in passage 1. Passage 2 advocates an alternative approach. Is passage 2 saying like, well, passage 1 talked about A, and I'm going to talk about an alternative B? No, he's directly arguing against passage 1's belief. So passage 1 is not talking about a problem, and passage 2 is discussing an alternative approach, a different way of looking at it, a different way of solving it. No, it's not going to be B. Let's see. Passage 2 provides further evidence to support an idea introduced. No, it's not further. It's contradictory evidence. It's not like, oh, also, let me support some more information that passage 1 talked about. Passage 2D exemplifies an attitude promoted in passage 1. No, passage 2 does not exemplify an attitude promoted in passage 1. I was going to say it doesn't, and now I'm thinking. Let's think. Does passage 2 exemplify an attitude promoted, and the attitude in passage 1 is destroy the government, tear asunder the government? That is a good, bad answer. You might be tempted to pick that because you're saying, yeah, passage 2 does exemplify an attitude that passage 1 is talking about. Passage 1 is all about these people who want to destroy government by fixing it, and that they don't realize that it's a serious contract between the dead, the living, and the unborn. Notice on how if you pick D, you're making a judgment. You're making a judgment that passage 1 is implicitly right and passage 2 is implicitly wrong. Because if you say passage 2 exemplifies an attitude promoted in passage 1, we don't know if that's the attitude promoted or not in passage 1. We don't know whether or not it's right or wrong. We don't know if passage 2 is the example that passage 1 is discussing. D is a really nuanced answer, but realize why it falls short of A. Because A is irrefutable. You can't prove it wrong. When we want to find the relationship between two passages, is it true that passage 2 challenges the argument of passage 1? Yes, because the central argument of passage 1 is that the government is a contract between the dead, the living, and the unborn. Passage 2 is saying, you're wrong. It's only between the living. That is true. D, though, does passage 2 exemplify an attitude promoted in passage 1? I don't know. Maybe Paine is not a guy who's changing willy-nilly the government. Maybe he's just proposing that the government is only made up of the living. That doesn't necessarily exemplify or show like, see, look at these crazy guys who are trying to, destroy everything. That's a bad take on the best relationship, broadly speaking, between the two passages. I almost wrote off D because I didn't understand it, actually. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized how nuanced the answer was. So the answer number 40 is going to be A. Though I understand why D is a really good bad answer. Realize, though, where it falls short, and realize why just because in one universe you can warp your logic to make it possibly right, that doesn't necessarily mean that A is wrong. And we need to find the least bad answer on this test, not find in some universe, in some logic chain, some way that an answer can be right. The answer that's not proven wrong is the one that's going to be right, not the answer that you can make right, if that makes any sense. Again, the answer number 40 is going to be A.